Hi friends, today we're going to talk about some further divisions in liberalism. Liberalism as an ideology, maybe not in its most concrete form, but it came about in the 17th century. Now is the 21st century, and now over these 4 to 5 centuries, the thinking has gone through certain variations according to the needs of the time. In the previous video, we spoke about how there are certain key elements in liberalism. Now, those elements stay the same throughout the time, but the role of the state and the economy or economic principles should be followed do keep changing over the time. So they can be divided as classical liberalism, modern liberalism, and neoliberalism. First, we'll be talking about classical liberalism. The key ideas of classical liberalism would mean the 17th century, the 18th century liberalism. So basically, there was a commitment to extreme form of individualism. As we know, it was a break from feudalism. There was a huge break from collectivism, and an extreme form of individualism was formed at this point. And human beings are taken to be the proprietors of their own persons and capacities, owing nothing to society or to other individuals. So there was an extreme faith in the abilities of people and their decision-making capacity. So the role of the state at this point of time was not doing any positive freedom or positive liberty to the people, but only providing them with negative liberty. I hope you remember what these are from the second module. Now, negative liberty meaning non-interference or the absence of external constraints on the individual. So basically the state's role is to provide non-interference from others. So basically the state and its role is quite minimal. Yes, so basically state is seen as a necessary evil. Necessary because there has to be order and security and there is peace in the society. But it is an evil because it imposes a collective will on the society, thus limiting the freedom and responsibilities of the individual. Not everyone gets to exercise their complete freedom and complete will because as a collective society there are some kind of restrictions placed on every individual. So the classical liberalists think that makes the state a necessary evil. So we can say the role of a state as probably of a night watchman, a very minimal role. The only thing the state has to do is to protect the citizens from encroachment of fellow citizens and outside aggression. Now, economic liberalism or the economic ideas in classical liberalism is that of free market and the belief that economy works best when left alone by government. The government should have no role in economic situations, but the people have to take care of their own situations, and once people start taking care of themselves, the whole society at large will be benefiting from it. So basically it's a laissez-faire capitalism which would guarantee prosperity, which would give individual liberty, and all individuals can rise according to their merit. And it would, of course, ensure social justice, is what classical liberals say. Adam Smith and his view of in his book Wealth of Nations is considered to be the crux of classical liberalism. Now, modern liberalism, we can trace it back to roughly the 1930s or maybe even more than that, but it's only a rough estimate that it started in the 1930s. We'll talk about that later, but we'll see what is the role of state in modern liberalism. In a very stark contrast to classical liberalism, modern liberalism starts talking about a welfare state, a state which interferes more. where there is more positive freedom. Because by this time, from starting from the 17th century and into the 20th century, the world saw a lot of problems with industrial capitalism. There was a lot of inequality in wealth. Some people made a lot of money, but a large group of people faced a lot of economic issues and they had no food or any basic survival uh, means. So basically, the laissez-faire capitalism, where they thought if individuals are left alone to fend for themselves and to if we give them the opportunity to rise, everyone in the society will do well and will be prosperous. That particular theory seemed to be not working out. So the modern liberals said, no, it won't happen. There will be some people who will not be able to help themselves because of certain lack of privileges. So state has to interfere to save people from want, ignorance, idleness, squalor, and disease. So the economics in modern liberalism, they believed in abandoning their belief in laissez-faire capitalism. So from Adam Smith's economics, we are moving into J.M. Keynes' Keynesian economics, and Keynes say that the growth and prosperity could be maintained only through a system of managed or regulated capitalism. So, from a capitalism which should be left alone in classical, in modern liberalism, they advocate regulated capitalism, and key economic responsibilities should be placed in the hands of the state. So, the goal will be here to raise individuals to the point where they are able to take responsibility for their own circumstances and make their own moral choices. So, here the state will have more economic, social, and social role to play in the life of people. Now, this thought was, of course, influenced by the work of course, J.M. Keynes and J.S. Mill, and also the people, some thinkers who were called as the new liberals, such as T.H. Green, L.T. Hobhouse, and J.A. Hobson. The final version of liberalism, the one we can see today, not exclusively, but then there are sprouts of neoliberalism almost everywhere. Today is neoliberalism. As the name suggests, neo means new liberalism, but it is not a completely new idea, but it is only the resurgence of laissez-faire economics and free market capitalism. So neoliberalism started making its way into the world by the 1970s and 80s. Now, modern liberalism became quite rampant. The ideas of modern liberalism became quite important, especially after the Second World War, that was after 1945. So from 1945 to 1980, modern liberalism was quite strong. But then, even then, the economy was facing issues. That's when neoliberalism came into the fore. And they said, especially by the 1980s and 70s, there was a new form of phenomena taking place, which was globalization. Economic, political, and social, cultural, and globalization was taking place by the 1980s and 70s. So, in view of that new development, modern liberalism was considered to be not as good as a new idea which is called neoliberalism. So, neoliberals were talking about resurgence of laissez-faire capitalism. We should be that the state should draw back its responsibilities and the people should be able to take control. And in this case, it is not just individuals but also corporates, multinational corporates, and large-scale companies who are making their way into the economy. And also, since the borders between the countries became open, free trade is a major idea of neoliberals, and neoliberals think that free trade will actually help in economic growth and eventually will help people acquire prosperity. So, minimal state intervention and unregulated economy are the ideas of neoliberalism. The most important influencers and key takers are economists like Frederick von Hayek and Milton Friedman are the most important economic thinkers behind neoliberalism. Now, these thoughts were strongly taken in by the conservative political parties in Britain and United States. So the prime ministers like Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan of United States were considered to be the strong advocates of neoliberalism, and during their long lengthy administration they strongly advocated and implemented neoliberal ideas.